A dying rancher's final command sounded more like a curse than a blessing. Marry the stranger when she arrives. No explanation. No reason. Just a promise his son had to keep. What Nathan Carter didn't know was that the woman riding toward his ranch carried nothing but a small satchel and a secret powerful enough to tear open the past, threaten the land his family had fought to keep for generations, and reveal why his father had made such a strange demand with his final breath. Nathan Carter had never seen a man as strong as his father brought low by sickness. For most of Nathan's life, Jacob Carter had been the kind of rancher people spoke about in the same tone they used for storms or mountains, something solid, immovable, impossible to ignore. The Carter Ranch stretched across miles of dry Texas grassland, built with stubborn hands and decades of sweat, and Jacob had ruled it with a quiet authority that made even the toughest cowhands listen when he spoke. But that winter, everything changed. The coughing started first, a rough, tearing sound that echoed through the house late at night, followed by long silences that felt heavier than words. Within months, the broad-shouldered rancher who had once ridden 3 days without sleep could barely rise from his bed. The doctor from the nearest town came twice, shook his head both times, and said there wasn't much a man could do when time decided it was finished with him. Nathan tried not to believe that. He kept working the ranch the same way he always had, riding fence lines at sunrise, checking the cattle, fixing broken gates. But every evening he returned to the house with a knot tightening in his chest because he knew what waited inside, the slow fading of the man who had taught him everything. One evening as the sun bled red across the prairie, Nathan stepped quietly into his father's room expecting to find him asleep, but Jacob Carter's sharp eyes were already open, watching the window like he was measuring how much daylight he had left. "Come here, boy," the old rancher said, his voice rough but steady, and Nathan moved closer, pulling a chair beside the bed. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the wind scraping against the wooden walls of the house. Then Jacob reached under his pillow and pulled out a sealed envelope, its edges worn as if it had been opened and closed 100 times. He held it out with a hand that trembled only slightly. "When a woman named Eliza Hartwell comes here," he said slowly, "I'm going to marry her." Nathan blinked, certain he'd heard wrong. "Marry her," he repeated. "Huh, I don't even know who that is." Jacob didn't smile or explain. His eyes stayed fixed on his son with a seriousness that felt heavier than any order he'd ever given on the ranch. "You don't need to know," he said. "You just need to promise." Nathan leaned back, confused and a little angry. His father had always been a man who believed in sense and reason, not strange demands. "Why would I promise something like that?" he asked. But Jacob's grip suddenly tightened around Nathan's wrist with surprising strength. "Because I gave my word years ago," the old rancher whispered, "and a Carter keeps his word even when it costs him everything." The words settled into the room like dust after a storm. Nathan stared at the envelope again, noticing the careful handwriting across the front, the faded ribbon tied around it. "Who is she?" he asked more quietly. "Someone who needs this ranch," Jacob replied. "And someone this ranch needs more than you understand." The answer only made Nathan's confusion deepen. He had spent his entire life on that land. He knew every dry creek bed, every hill, every stubborn patch of grass where the cattle liked to wander. There was nothing mysterious about it, just hard soil and long days of work. Yet his father spoke as if the place held secrets buried beneath the dirt. "If this is some kind of joke," Nathan began, but Jacob cut him off with a slow shake of his head. "It isn't," he said. His breathing had grown heavier now, the effort of speaking draining what little strength he had left. 2 weeks from now a stagecoach will arrive in town," he continued. "The woman stepping off it will have nothing with her except that name. When she comes here, you marry her." Nathan opened the envelope but found only a single short note inside, written in neat, careful script. Asterisk, "My daughter will come with nothing. But her name. Please give her a home." Asterisk, he turned the paper over, hoping for more explanation, but there was nothing else. "Pa," he said slowly, "this doesn't make sense." For the first time that evening Jacob Carter looked tired, not just sick, but weary in a way that seemed deeper than illness. His eyes drifted toward the window where the fading lights stretched across the ranch he had built with his own hands. "Some promises take years to understand," he murmured. "But they still have to be kept." Nathan waited for him to say more. to explain who Eliza Hartwell was or why this marriage mattered so much. But the old rancher's voice faded before another word could form. His hand loosened its grip on Nathan's wrist, and within moments the room fell silent except for the wind outside. Nathan sat there long after the last light disappeared from the prairie, the letter still in his hand, and his father's strange command echoing in his mind. Somewhere out there, a stranger named Eliza Hartwell was traveling toward the Carter Ranch. Nathan had no idea who she was, why his father had trusted her future to him, or why she would arrive with nothing but a name. But one thing troubled him more than anything else. Jacob Carter had never made a request he didn't believe was necessary. And if his dying father had demanded this marriage, then whatever secret road toward the ranch on that distant stagecoach was big enough to change everything Nathan thought he knew about his family, his land, and the promise he had just unwillingly agreed to keep. 2 weeks after Jacob Carter was buried on the hill overlooking the ranch, Nathan stood outside the small stage stop in Dry Creek, wondering if his father's final request had been nothing more than the fevered wish of a dying man. The letter remained folded in his coat pocket, its single sentence worn thin from the number of times he had read it. My daughter will come with nothing but her name. For 14 days Nathan had tried to imagine the woman behind those words, but every guess felt wrong. The Carter Ranch was miles from anywhere important, and there was nothing waiting for a stranger there except long days of work and the dust of the plains. Yet Jacob Carter had spoken with the kind of certainty that never allowed room for argument, even on his deathbed. Nathan leaned against the hitching rail and watched the empty road while townspeople drifted past pretending not to stare. News of the strange promise had already spread through Dry Creek, and more than one person had joked that Nathan might end up married before the month was over. He ignored them all, telling himself the woman probably wouldn't come. But late that afternoon, the distant rumble of wheels broke the quiet, and a stagecoach appeared through a cloud of dust. Nathan straightened as the horses slowed, and the coach rolled to a stop. The driver climbed down first, stretching stiff muscles, then opened the door for the passengers. A traveling salesman stepped out carrying several cases, followed by an older woman wrapped in a thick shawl. Nathan felt a flicker of relief, thinking perhaps the stranger had changed her mind after all. Then a third passenger appeared. She paused in the doorway before stepping carefully down onto the wooden platform. Nathan noticed 3 things immediately. First, she was younger than he expected, no more than a few years younger than himself. Second, her clothes were simple and worn from travel, but she carried herself with a calm confidence that didn't quite match the dusty town around them. And third, she had almost nothing with her. No trunk, no suitcase, only a small leather satchel held tightly in both hands. She looked around the street for a moment before her gaze settled on Nathan. Then she walked toward him. "Mr. Carter?" she asked quietly. Nathan nodded, studying her face. "Depends," he said. "Are you Eliza Hartwell?" The woman gave a small nod. "Yes." Hearing the name out loud made Nathan feel the weight of his father's promise again. He glanced at the tiny satchel she carried. "You came all this way with just that?" Eliza followed his gaze and lifted the bag slightly. "It's everything I own." The answer was calm, without embarrassment or complaint. Nathan rubbed the back of his neck, unsure what to make of her. "Look," he said after a moment, "my father asked a lot of strange things near the end. You don't have to go through with this marriage if that's what you came for." Eliza met his eyes steadily. "I know what he asked. And you're still here?" Nathan said, "Yes." He frowned slightly. "Why?" She hesitated just long enough for Nathan to notice. "Because your father believed this ranch was important," she replied. "And so did my father." That answer only deepened Nathan's confusion. "Your father knew mine?" Eliza nodded once. "Years ago." Nathan exhaled slowly and gestured toward the horse tied nearby. "Well, if you traveled this far, you might as well see the place before deciding anything." The ride back to the ranch took nearly an hour across dry fields and rolling pasture. Eliza spoke little, but Nathan noticed how carefully she studied the land as they rode. The barns, the distant hills, the long fences stretching across the plains. It wasn't the look of someone admiring the scenery. It was the look of someone searching for something. When the ranch house finally came into view, she slowed her horse slightly. "Your father built all of this?" she asked. "Most of it," Nathan said. They stopped in the yard, and Nathan turned toward her again. "Before we talk about any marriage," he said, I think you should explain something. Eliza slid down from the saddle and opened the small satchel. From inside, she pulled a folded document stamped with an official seal and handed it to him. Nathan unfolded the paper and scanned the heading. It was a government land survey report. His brow furrowed as he read further. What is this supposed to mean? He asked slowly. Eliza looked toward the wide stretch of Carter land surrounding them before answering. It means your father knew something about this ranch that most people don't. Nathan folded the paper again, unease creeping into his chest. And what's that? She met his eyes, her voice lowering. There's something buried beneath this land, she said quietly. Something valuable enough that certain men would do anything to get it. The truth came out slowly that evening inside the Carter Ranch house, with only a lantern burning on the kitchen table and the sound of the wind pressing against the wooden walls. Nathan sat across from Eliza with the survey papers spread between them, still trying to make sense of what he had read. According to the documents, years earlier a geological survey had discovered something hidden beneath the Carter land, something far more valuable than cattle or crops. Eliza explained that her father had been the geologist who made the discovery. He had sent the findings to Jacob Carter, trusting him to keep them safe until the right moment. But powerful men from a drilling company had learned about the report and tried to buy the ranch quietly before anyone else could uncover the truth. When Eliza's father refused to lie about the survey results, he died in what the company claimed was an accident. Eliza never believed it. That was why Jacob Carter had written to her family years ago, promising that if anything happened, the Carter Ranch would remain a safe place for the truth to surface. Nathan leaned back in his chair, realizing that the strange promise his father demanded on his deathbed had never been about marriage at all. It had been about protection. By marrying Eliza, she would legally become part of the Carter family, making it far harder for anyone to challenge the survey or push her away from the land. Outside, the prairie stretched dark and silent, hiding whatever secret rested beneath the soil. Nathan looked at the determined woman sitting across from him, the stranger who had arrived with nothing but a small satchel and a dangerous truth. After a long moment, he nodded slowly. Seems my father planned further ahead than I thought, he said. Eliza gave a faint, tired smile. He believed you'd understand eventually. Nathan stood and reached for his hat. Then I suppose we'd better keep his promise, he said. Eliza looked up. You mean the marriage? Nathan opened the door, glancing back at the ranch that had suddenly become far more valuable and far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. If there are men willing to kill for what's under this land, he said quietly, then you're safer here as a Carter. He paused before adding, and I have a feeling this story isn't over yet. Somewhere beyond the dark hills, powerful people were already moving, eager to claim the hidden fortune beneath the Carter Ranch. But now Nathan Carter and the mysterious woman his father had chosen were standing together to protect it, and the promise that had started it all.